Hi everybody, it's Lisa here from ProWritingAid. Can we just check and make sure that everything is working okay? If you can see me and hear me, can you just put your name and where you're coming in from in the chat box? Okay, we've got Grace from the Philippines. Grace, welcome back again. Jocelyn from Massachusetts, David in England, Laura from Edmonton. So I'm Lisa. I'm the head of marketing here at ProWritingAid, and with me is Chris Banks, and we're just going to give you a bit of a tour of the software today. But before we get started, I just wanted to tell you a few more things. When everybody started locking down for coronavirus, we set up a whole range of online events, and I just wanted to let you know some of the other events that we do, since a lot of people that attend this session are new users. So on the second Tuesday of every month, we have a monthly Book Doctor Q&A. So we have Sally OJ, who is book doctor to a lot of best-selling authors, and she's basically here to answer all your questions around fiction and about publishing a novel. And she has a different topic each month, where last month was Show Don't Tell, and she's a really excellent resource, and she lets us ask all the questions we want, which is great. Third Tuesday of every month, we have our monthly Writing Professor Q&A with AJ Ogilvy. He's a professor of business communications at the University of Southern California. He also has a topic. Last time it was about how to write a great cover letter. He's also done sessions on writing a good sales email. And I think his next one is about how to stop Zooming and be more effective by doing more writing and less Zooming. So fewer meetings, which I think we all can get on board with. And then Haley Milliman, who's our content lead and an author, hosts the monthly write-ins, which I normally go along to as well because they're quite fun, and they're topical as well. Last time it was world building, and we all have writing prompts and write together. So it's a really good way to get a bit inspired and think about things in a different way. You can find out about all of our webinars just at prowritingaid.com/webinars. So today, this is our general plan for what we're going to do, but Chris and I do these every month, and so we're changing it up a bit depending on what people are looking for. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. If you have specific questions that you want us to answer, or specific parts of the software or specific integrations that you want us to talk about, just stick them in there. That's better than the chat box for questions, just because it's easier for me to keep track of what's where. And I just wanted to introduce Chris. So Chris is here with us. He's the one that started ProWritingAid about, God, what, 6 years ago? 7 years ago?
6 years, yeah.
6 years ago. And he created it for himself. He was just working on his own book, and he's got a good technical mind, and so just wanted to find a way to highlight some of his own mistakes, and then put the first version on the internet, and to his amazement, not everyone, but lots of people started using it. And it's just grown from there, and now we've got 1.5 million users, I think, at last count. And so we've come a long way. So what I'm going to do in a moment is just pass over to him. He's going to share his screen and talk you through some of the basics. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice a little bit, so forgive me if I am a bit quieter than usual tonight. So just about how to upload your document, how real-time grammar works, how the summary report works. That's a great place for everyone to start. And then some of the individual reports. So if there's specific reports that anyone really likes or is finding confusing, just let us know and we can delve into them there. There's some other helpful features in the software, like the Word Explorer and a few others like that. We've got several software integrations, and then we've got a whole range of writing resources, including the blog and the YouTube channel and a grammar guide and all kinds of things. So we'll have a look at that at the end. Yeah, so with that, Chris, shall I hand over to you?
Yeah, sounds good. Can you let me share my screen?
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect, thank you very much. There we go. So what we can see here is our online web editor. So as Lisa mentioned, we have integrations for lots of different other products. So we've got Google Docs, we've got Microsoft Word, we've got plugins for Chrome, Firefox, Edge, and Safari. But most people start off with the web editor. And so I think the first thing to do is obviously to get your writing in there. And actually, this is quite an important step, and it's going to make your life a lot easier if you do it in the right way. So obviously, a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to copy and paste it into web editor. Depending on what you're writing in, that's probably not the right thing to do. So if you're using Microsoft Word, then you're best to upload the document here. And what that means, the difference is that when you then download it again, it will maintain all of your formatting and you won't lose that, because you can waste a lot of time redoing all of your formatting. I think this is one of the important things with a lot of other products. You don't have that. Also, if you're using Microsoft Word, we have a Word add-in, which will allow you to work directly in Word. Lots of authors I know like to use Scrivener, which is a great tool for larger pieces of writing because it allows you to structure your writing, allows you to store your research in there. If you're using that, then our desktop app is definitely what you want, because that will open your Scrivener projects and allow you to work effectively, similarly to how you would within Scrivener, and it will save it back automatically to your Scrivener projects. And we're the only tool that has that functionality. So I think that is very important to bear in mind, and it will save you a huge amount of time wasted in terms of copying and pasting and correcting all of your formatting. So I'm just going to start by uploading a Word document here. So for my desktop, I'm just going to choose a document. So here it's come in. And you can see straight away that I'm starting to get highlights in here for different issues, for say spelling and grammar. Once you want to export this again, there's an export option here. And you'll see that that just downloads the document as well. So once you've made your changes, you can actually download it without even saving it here if you don't want to. A quick note there is, if you do save it, then you can also activate autosave so that you won't lose anything, and it will store it online if that's what you want. But obviously, I think security is very important for a lot of writers, and so we do the most that we can to make sure that nobody else has access to your writing, and that we only store it if you want us to store it.
It's a great way to keep a backup of your writing, though. I find I always, as soon as I upload anything, I save it just so that the autosave kicks in, and then if we do make any changes and you lose internet or anything freezes up, then everything will still be there when you open it up again.
Yeah, and of course you'll have access across like all of your computers as well. I think that's another common question that people ask is, if I upgrade to premium, how many computers can I install it on? And the answer is, well, it's yours as an individual, so as many computers as you're using, as long as you're the user. So we don't have any kind of restrictions that you can only install it on 2 or 3 computers.
Yeah. Ronald is saying he uses LibreOffice. How can he use it? He's been cutting and pasting.
Yeah, so LibreOffice has a format that we support as well. So again, you can either upload it through here, so it's ODT file, .odt I think is the extension, or you can use our desktop app, which I've just loaded up. This is a Scrivener project here, but it supports all kinds of different file formats, so you can upload, and you can see a list here. So OpenOffice documents is the ODT, which is LibreOffice, so you can upload it, and again, well, if you're using our desktop application, then it will only store it on your computer, and it will write back to that specific document as well. So you'll get updates to that document as you're using it. So you don't even need to upload and download, and the response will be a bit faster because it's obviously just happening on your local computer. So
Joan is saying she doesn't ever export to Word. It seems to store it in Word anyway. So Joan, I'm guessing that you use our desktop app because, like you say, it just opens up your Word document and then saves it back in the same place at the end. Yes. The uploading and exporting is only for if you're on the web editor.
Yeah, and we also support Final Draft for those of you who are script writers and use that as well. So you can see there's quite a wide variety of file formats supported.
Yeah, Gary's asking about integrating with Ulysses. I think the best way to do that is to export it as is it a markdown file?
Yeah, so you can actually open their individual files, because I think they're marked down. Mostly it's plain text, so you can import markdown files here. We are talking to Ulysses about a better way to integrate with them. Okay, so back to the web editor. So you can see here I've got highlights, and on every highlight you'll get a little help. So you can see here the helps come through and it leads to an article I can then read, which gives me more information about it. On a lot of them we actually have videos integrated as well, and you can click to read full article. And this will take you to our grammar guide, where there's lots of different resources on grammar. There's lots of examples. There's even quizzes built in that you can do to choose to help your knowledge. So there's a wealth of resources here, and we'll look a bit more. We're all writers, and writing is really important to us, and helping other people to become better writers is the whole reason that this company exists. So we put a lot of effort into producing great content to help all you guys learn. Lisa puts together an amazing newsletter that we send out, which includes lots and lots of great resources. As Lisa already mentioned, we have the webinars, which we all really enjoy doing, and they're again a great resource for learning, and that's all provided for free.
And that's something we're always expanding. When we first developed the app, we would just sort of give the explanations and assume that people knew what passive voice was or why very might be problematic. But now we've really expanded it out. Yeah, that's one with the video, and we're really going to build it out. We want this to be the app that helps you become a better writer and to understand good writing technique, the things that you would learn in a writing course.
Yeah, and that's how we view it. It's basically like having a writing course, but it's on your own writing. So it's applied directly to what you're working on. It's not like reading a book and getting some kind of abstract advice and then struggling to actually apply it to what you're actually writing. It's like having a personal tutor helping you with your writing. So when you start, the summary report is a really good place to start at, because this gives you a good overview of everything. There's quite a few reports you can see across the top, and some of them are pertinent to different types of people, different types of writers. So we've got some that are very specific for business writers, some that are very specific for creative writers or academia. But the summary report will give you, it's worth mentioning on here, you can change not only the language. I'm from the UK, Lisa's from Canada. We also support US and Australian. You can change the style as well, and that will change the stats that we use to measure your writing. So for instance, with academic writing, we are a bit more lenient on the passive voice because it's just a natural part of academic writing. You can go back to the reports. So when I run the summary report, what it's doing is it's running a variety of all of the different reports and giving me an overview of all of that information. So you can see I get an overall score for grammar, spelling and style as well. Obviously, this is a kind of test document we put together that shows off some of the grammar and style issues. So you've got quite low scores here.
And we should alert you that if you don't get back in there for a couple of weeks, we're about to do a whole makeover on our summary report. So if you go back in a couple of weeks from now, it may look, well, it'll look much prettier than this. We've come a long way.
Yes. So you get a whole bunch of statistics on your document, and things like the unique words, and then you get measures, and you get a bunch of visualizations So I think for me, the visualizations are really interesting because you can see your writing in a different way. I think my favorite one is the sentence length. So you can immediately see all of the sentences in your work and how long they are. And this will let you see, for instance, if you've written lots of really long sentences all together, that can illustrate a particularly dense part of your document that you might want to look at and give your reader some relief. Similarly, it will show you a sentence variety. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize, that the variety of sentence length is really important for keeping your reader interested and engaged in what you're writing. So, for instance, if you see lots of sentences that in a row that have all got a very similar length, then that kind of creates a monotony for the reader. So you want to go in and find that area and break it up and put in a few different length sentences.
And every writer will have different areas of writing that they're more confident in and different areas that they need to work on. And so the summary report is sort of helping to put you in a certain direction and figure out what areas you still have room to improve, so that you can start focusing on those, because they'll give you the biggest bang for your buck.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's worth noting that the tool is used by writers of all levels and abilities and experiences, from complete novices to people who have published multiple books and been very successful. And I always think of it as in the most successful people in the world, they all have a coach. They all have beta readers that read what they're doing. They all take that feedback on board and they improve what they've done the first time, because it's really hard to do something in a vacuum without any feedback. And that's how we see the tool. It's there to provide you feedback, to kind of question what you've written and to ask you those questions. And you're free to ignore it, right? Nothing that it says is prescribed. It's just saying, kind of keeping you accountable and providing a positive feedback loop with you to hopefully make your document a lot better by the end. And computers can't do everything and will never replace a human editor, but computers can also do things in a few seconds that it would take a human weeks to do. So for instance, we can count up all of your repeated words in a 100,000 word document in a few seconds and give you suggestions for replacements.
Yeah, or even phrases. If you have a habit of writing at the end of the day, you probably won't notice it because it's just something that comes out of your mouth, or comes out of your fingers into your computer. But when you run a repeats check and you realize that you've used it 6 times in one document, it's harder to see that as an editor over multiple chapters or multiple parts of a report or whatever. So that's one of the ways that it's really easy to see how a computer can be useful. Yeah,
and it can happen easily with copy and paste. In fact, I was reading a book the other day and there was 3 sentences that were completely repeated, that were like 4 pages apart. And it was just something like, they obviously didn't use ProWritingAid.
Yeah, it's quite jarring when that happens. The other thing I wanted to say about the summary report is, don't get too caught up in the scores at the top. The scores are there to help you, but if you know that you are writing a fictional character who speaks, in a certain dialect, or if you're trying to give him a particular voice, then the grammar score might not be correct because you're purposefully not using correct grammar for that character voice, and that's fine. You're the writer. Figure out what elements of the report work well for you, and if getting a perfect grammar score doesn't make sense with your dialogue, then don't worry about it. You're the writer. You control what happens.
Exactly. And again, there's more information about every report in here. So this will again will take you to the blog. So if there's anything that you don't understand, then you just click on one of these links. There's going to be a lot of new terminology here, new information. If you are just beginning on your writing journey, then you might not recognize a lot of it. So wherever there's a help link, have a look, and it will explain more about it. And also, I think there is a little bit of a learning curve, but you just start small. You don't have to understand everything at the beginning. Right? You can just start with the grammar and style, and then you can start looking at other reports after that, and as you kind of gradually expand your knowledge.
Yeah, I'm actually going to run a quick poll here before we go into the individual reports. So the poll says, what's your favorite ProWritingAid report? But actually what I want to know is, which report do you want us to look at and talk about right now? So I'm just launching that right now. If everybody can take a second. And if you don't know, if you haven't really had time to go in and look around, then that's fine too. Okay.
I hope sticky sentences, that's my favorite.
Yeah. Lot for readability, lot for sticky sentences, and then style and grammar. I think those are maybe the three that we should look at. Those are, I mean, those are 4 really excellent reports. Oh, and you've intrigued them now by saying that now people are voting for sticky sentence report. So why don't we start with grammar and style, and then we'll do sticky sentence and readability. They work really well together, readability and sticky sentence. There's a lot of the same technique there. Okay, great. Perfect. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and so one of the things Lisa was saying that we're going to be revamping this report. At the moment, you get these key actions here. So one of them is that I've got a high glue index and says that I'm using lots of filler words, and I should try reducing these to look at the sticky sentences report. So here we try, and you might see different things depending on what you put in. We try and point you towards the things that will give you the biggest improvement in your document in the shortest period of time. So I think that's another important thing to bear in mind, is that you could spend the whole of the rest of your life improving your writing, but we all have a very limited amount of time in order to do things. So the best use of that time is to work on the things that will give us the biggest improvements. So that's a recurring theme in the product, is that we're trying to point you to the parts of your document which will gain the most by your attention and where you can get the biggest improvements in a short space of time. So I think you can never say, oh, I'm done, but you realize when you get into a point of diminishing returns, that's when you have to say, okay, it's good enough. So I'm just going to close this now. And so we ran the summary from here. If we want to turn the real time on and off, we can do it here. So if you don't like having suggestions as you're typing, you can actually just turn them off. Some people
find it distracting.
And then you can run individual reports here. So what would we say, the grammar or the style?
Someone was asking where punctuation lives.
So punctuation lives within the grammar report, yes. So starting with the style, so we have things like readability enhancements. So these are the typical things that a copy editor would correct. So they're kind of quick fixes for your writing, where maybe you've used more words than you need to. For instance, one of my favorites is "this begins to rise and rises." I always write this, and I don't know why. There's very few times when actually you don't mean to just, or it's not better said, it just rises. So this obviously saves you a huge amount of time, or your copy editor a huge amount of time. And I think that's another theme, is that if you are going to send your work to a copy editor, it's worth using ProWritingAid beforehand, because you get a lot more value from your copy editor. And in fact, we work with a lot of copy editors who actually suggest to their authors to use ProWritingAid before they send it to them. And the reason is because it will then give them more time to focus on what you might say are arguably harder to do bits of copy editing, which is looking at things like tone of voice, characterization, spotting plot holes, that kind of stuff. Imagine if you sent a document that was 80% spelling mistakes to a copy editor, again, they only have a specific amount of time, right? So if they're just correcting spelling mistakes, they won't have time for everything else. So
Yeah,
this is the next level. Yeah.
If you want to get the most out of your editor, you want to send them your document so that it's as publish ready as you can possibly make it. And then all the improvements that they make is really going to be polished. They're going to be able to tighten up things at such a micro level that's going to make a really big difference. They'll be able to focus on the meat.
Yeah, exactly. So, and actually a lot of copy editors will use our tool as well to spot these simple to make changes. So you might as well be doing it so that, as you say, you get more value from them. So we have a team of copy editors that actually create these rules so that we can then apply them to your text.
Yeah, well, and a lot of the rules are made by actual working copy editors who add them as they're editing other documents. And so there's a mixture in the tool of algorithm-based suggestions like the readability that we were talking about, and like hand-constructed suggestions that actual copy editors know have come up all the time and that they find in their own work. And so then they add them into the tool that way.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see it looks again for things like passive voice. You look for hidden verbs, which is where you've taken a verb and you've turned it into a noun and then used a weak verb. So that's like make a decision. So people often write, we need to make a decision about this, when they could really say, we need to decide about this. It's a shorter phrase, it's a stronger verb, it's an easy fix. So we look at things like long subordinate clauses, which can make your writing harder to read. I think a lot of people talk about adverbs as well as being bad. We actually have this concept of good adverbs and bad adverbs, which a lot of other products don't have. So we've broken them down into good adverbs and bad adverbs, and we try and only give you the bad adverbs. So bad adverbs are ones that you use with a verb when you're trying to change the meaning of the verb to give it a nuance or a slightly different meaning. Like, he ran quickly across the room, right? It comes into your mind because run is like a very common verb, but you want to emphasize the fact that he ran quickly. But actually, you'd be much better off using a stronger verb like sprinted or rushed or hurried or charged or cannoned across the room. As I read
and in some cases,
Dan Brown book once.
Yeah, in some cases we'll suggest a rewrite, but you can also double click the word that's been highlighted and it'll give you that'll bring up our contextual thesaurus. So it'll give you context-based synonyms that.
Yeah, so if you double click a word like this, you'll get different words that you can use within the context. So actually, should have done that. Put it in there. So yeah, I mean, again, using adverbs when you're writing your first draft, I think, is not wrong at all, and it's just natural to use it because when you're writing your first draft, you just use the words that come into your head the quickest, right? Because all you're trying to do is get your thoughts down on paper and capture them. The editing phase is the next phase where you take all of those words and you improve them so that it's easier for those words to come off the page again and into your reader's mind. And a word like charge is going to be much more effective than ran quickly, which just leaves you kind of a bit bored by all of the action.
And and there's other reports that are similar. We have a cliche report that will just flag your cliches, and I think, again, when you're in writing momentum, lots of people use cliches, but when you go back, it's always better to try and think of something fresh because that'll stick in the mind of your reader much more than just, 2 peas in a pod or 2 peas in a pod. Everybody's heard that a million times. And so is there a better way that you can create a visual in your reader's mind that will stick and that'll make an impact. And I think it's the same sort of thing in them.
2 baby owls in a nest.
Oh,
See, much cuter.
I've got a visual, yeah. So the grammar report works in quite a similar way. Punctuation and stuff is there. Chris is weirdly obsessed with commas, and so he has handwritten explanations around commas.
Very important.
20, so there's 24 different ways that you can use a comma, and Chris has handwritten every explanation that comes up in the text, telling you how you might be using it wrong.
It's because I didn't understand how to use them because my English teacher explained so badly to me.
Well, and because there's 24 different ways to use them. So
exactly.
They're complicated.
And the best way to learn is to explain it to somebody else. So that's what I decided to do.
Yeah, so now he knows everything about commas.
Not weirdly obsessed, just sensible.
It's weirdly obsessed. Do you want to have a look at sticky sentences, since that's your favorite?
Sure, yeah. So
also my favorite, to be fair.
The sticky sentences, what we do is we analyze each of your sentence and we look for what we call glue words. So glue words are the kind of common filler words that stick your sentences together. And I think this is a good example. So we list the glue words, which are can, how, must, be, to, get, in, and, out of, a, at. And if you look at those words, you have absolutely no idea what the sentence is about, right? So they are just the words that stick together. The other words, which you can think of as the meat and potato words, so the key words in your sentence, which are generally the nouns and the verbs, but you need all of these other words as supporting words.
Yeah, I always think of them as the scaffolding. You know, they hold your sentence together and they help your reader navigate the words that have actual meaning, but in themselves, they don't have that much meaning. And we're not saying write your sentence without any glue words, because that's impossible. The glue words are there for a reason. But published writing has a low percentage of glue words, because too many glue words often is a sign that your sentence is going back and forth, that it's wobbling around a bit, it's not getting to the point, and it's hard to follow. So this is a bit like I always think of it as a librarian or an editor just behind you, just tapping you on the shoulder saying, the score is high here, have a look again and see if you can rewrite this in a way that's cleaner. So Chris, go ahead, let's see a rewrite here.
Yeah, I started thinking of it as like your cholesterol for your writing, like how much fat is in your writing. So yeah, I mean a sentence like this, again, I would just cut out a lot of it, right, and say, you can imagine that it's just saying it's hard. So what I've done there is I've cut half the sentence without changing the meaning really, and yeah, it's just a lot easier to read. Yeah.
So this is one of those ones where we don't rewrite it for you. We don't have a suggestion. You, the writer, need to have a look at it, figure out if there's a way you can improve it. And you know, with any sentence, English is a complicated language and there's a lot of different ways to say the same thing. You could say it's not easy to get out of a hammock at my age, or you could say at my age it's difficult to get out of a hammock. There's a lot of ways you can play with it. So, you know, be creative, try a few things, see what works, change things around.
Yeah, or you could say I struggle to get out of a hammock, and on my age is then implied. So it's a nice little challenge. But again, what we're doing here is we're pointing you at the sentences that are the hardest for people to read. So, you know, we're not saying that it's wrong, and you know, you might say, okay, actually, I can't improve this, so I'll move on. But we're pointing you at arguably the most filler-heavy words in your writing, so that you can get the most from your editing by focusing on those. And again, you could do this yourself and count all of the glue words, but that would take you a huge amount of time to identify them all. So we're just saving you time. So, you know, we constantly get feedback from people that this tool just saves them so much time. You know, if you're doing smaller pieces, it will save you, minutes. If you're writing a whole book, it will save you literally days of your editing time. So
yeah. And Susan's asking, do you also explain how to reduce the glue index? So if you see in the sidebar there where it says sticky sentences, check, we've really been working on the explanation there to tell you how different things that you should be looking for, different ways that you can actually unstick your sentences a bit. So in some cases you'll want to, so here it explains what your glue words are. And then if you carry on down to the bottom, it'll say, are you trying to pack too much into your sentences? How do I unstick my sentences? Are they needlessly complex? So can you simplify them? Are there things that you can get rid of? Have you backloaded your sentences? Because that's sentences that are backloaded with the information at the end are harder to read. Have you tried to put in too many points? Have you included non-essential information? So we try and help you here figure out what the problems are, and then you can go back and have a look based on that information.
Yes, I think the examples are really useful, right? So we've got the sticky alternative and then the rewrite here, and you can see it's quite common to be able to reduce your glue index by even 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, if I'm struggling with it, what I do is I write out the keywords of the sentence, and then I see what's the fewest words I can use to connect them. Okay, like, what are the fewest words that you can write down to say that somebody can understand that sentence, even if it's not grammatically correct, right? And then what's the fewest words that I can then add to that sentence to make it grammatically correct? So instead of trying to take the sentence and cut things away from it, you take the bare essence of the sentence and then you add as little to it as you can.
Great. Chris, I might change direction a little bit here. There's a lot of questions about the different integrations. So we have a quick look. So the first question that we always get is, will there be a plugin for Word on Mac?
Yes.
Yes! This
Very
is very exciting.
Yes, so we're in the sort of latter phases of developing a plugin for Word on Mac. So we're hoping to have a test version out to people soon.
Yeah, so we're going to ask our community to beta test it for us. So if you're not signed up for a newsletter, make sure that you are. And then you can become a beta tester for us and have an early preview.
Yeah, Lisa tried it the other day and she was so excited she had to tweet about it.
I did. It was so exciting. People have been asking for it for so long and we couldn't for a long time. But Apple has just changed some things and now we can make it happen, which is great. I'm just putting a couple links in the chat where you can sign up for our newsletter in case you're not already, in case you want to have a preview of our new app. The next question related is there a plugin for Microsoft Outlook?
There is, yes. So the Office add-on, when you download that, installs into Outlook as well. So that will give you highlights and grammar mistakes in Outlook.
Great. Patrick says, if I want to use ProWritingAid on my emails, is my only option to cut and paste? He usually uses Apple Mail on a Mac. Does our Chrome extension work with Apple Mail? Safari, rather?
Yeah, it works in Safari, so if you're using the web version of Apple Mail, I assume there is. I'm not an Apple Mail user myself, so I'm not 100% sure about this. But if it's available in the web browser, then we have Chrome extension here.
Safari extension, Firefox.
Yeah, so we have extensions for all of the main browsers. So you can see here, you can just install it and then it will appear on your toolbar and you can enable it for certain sites, you can disable it for various sites, you can change your language, you can edit your dictionary as well. This is quite a...
Yeah, and so I use Gmail. All of our companies on Gmail, and so I just have the Chrome extension and it lives in the corner of the Gmail text box. And the real-time checking that Chris was showing you in the web app, that happens in the text box itself. And then if you want to run any of the more complex reports or the sticky sentence report, there's a little button that opens up a pop-up of the whole tool. So you can use it on almost any website on the text boxes.
Yep.
Okay. James says he has been a Grammarly user for almost a year, but is considering switching. Apart from cost, what other advantages would you say ProWritingAid has for a writer? I primarily use MS Office, but also as a relatively unused version of Scrivener. Yeah, somebody else was saying that they like, Richard was also saying that he's trying to get his head around Scrivener and is struggling a bit.
Yeah, I think Scrivener, again, it does have a little bit of a learning curve, but once you start using it, especially if you're writing bigger documents, it just is so useful. So with regards to Grammarly, obviously Grammarly focuses mainly on grammar. They do have some style, but they don't go into nearly as much depth on anything. So you don't have things like repeats and the echoes. You don't have the sentence length. This is the readability report that people were looking for. We give you a readability score for every paragraph, so you can see immediately where the least readable paragraphs of your writing are. Obviously, things like sticky sentences you don't have. So we go into a lot more depth in terms of what you can look at, but also we give a lot more information in terms of learning resources. So I think Grammarly is predominantly aimed at people who have English as a second language. They don't really give very much instruction, whereas we are really about learning and improving. So I always think of Grammarly as, you're buying insurance, you don't make a mistake, whereas ProWritingAid is like buying a college degree in writing. Right? You're going to learn and improve, and you're going to make fewer mistakes as a result of that. So it's really an investment in you. So for me, those are the kind of biggest differences. And obviously, as I said, we're the only company that supports Scrivener. I think that is really important for a lot of people who are writing bigger documents. So this is our desktop application, as I showed you earlier. I've opened up, actually, this is kind of trial manual for ProWritingAid before we had all of our web content. And so you can see you can keep everything in folders. You can keep your research here as well. And the thing for me that I really like is you can have all of your research in there. And I tend to store research with every chapter that I've written. And then you can compile your document at the end, and it will exclude all of your research. It will, you can apply the same formatting to everything. So you don't have to go through your whole document, reformatting everything. Okay. I can change the formatting just at the end to whatever I decide that I want to have it, format that I want to have it in. And of course, you can export to lots of different formats as well, which is useful. So you can send a Word document to one person, you can send an ebook to another person. I think it's really worthwhile, and it's fairly priced as well. So.
Okay, great. Linda Gale says she's going to switch from a PC to a Mac by the end of the year. If she buys now, can she change mid-subscription?
Yeah, of course. As I said, it's your subscription as an individual. So wherever you're writing, whatever you change from or to, you can carry it over. So yeah, whether you're changing computers or editing software or browser, whatever, everything is available to you as a premium subscriber.
Suzanne says, is there a plugin for WordPerfect?
Unfortunately, there isn't at the moment. So the best thing to do is to export in a Word or OpenOffice format, which is an open format, and use that. And that's mostly because WordPerfect doesn't support add-ins, and it doesn't have an open format of documents, I don't think. So.
Great. Robert says, can you explain how the plagiarism function works, including how much it costs?
Sure. So plagiarism, we don't include in our premium plan because not everybody needs it. So we want to provide value for money. So we don't want you to pay for things that you're not going to use. A lot of writers don't need plagiarism. A lot of them do. So we have two options. You can either buy Premium Plus, which includes 60 plagiarism checks a year, or you can buy bundles of plagiarism checks if you require more than 60. So we have teachers that use it or buy bundles so they can check students' work. So we want to give you as much flexibility in that regard as possible. And obviously there's like content writers who quite often need plagiarism for every article they write, just to double check.
Okay, so someone is asking what the flash reading score that we should be aiming for is. Does a higher score dictate how easy the paragraph is to read? Thanks. Do you want to jump over into readability report?
Yeah, of course. So I think the main answer for readability is that it really depends on what you're writing.
And who you're writing for.
And who you're writing for. But I think one of the common misconceptions is that often Flesh is quoted as a grade level. So it might be, grade level 6 or grade level 7. People think, well, I'm not writing for people of that age. But that's not really what it means, right? Often very good writing is designed or has a readability of a very low grade level, but it might have a richer vocabulary. So the readability score is created by looking at the number of syllables in a word, in all of your words, and then the sentence length as well. So the longer words that you're using with more syllables and the longer your average sentence length is, the higher your readability grade will be. So if you want to reduce it, then the two things that you need to do are to use shorter words and use shorter sentences.
But it is not saying that you should be dumbing down your work. The ideas can still be complex, the ideas can still be rich, the language can still be rich. It's just simply about clarity and using the most simple words that most people will understand. And so without having to work out.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is if you took children's authors, like Roald Dahl maybe, or YA, Harry Potter, whatever, you would find that the readability grade is exactly the same as you might find in like fantasy or thrillers or romance. There's no real difference in the readability grade, but of course the vocabulary that's being used might vary quite a lot.
And if you're a rocket scientist and you're writing highly technical documents, then of course you'll have your score will be higher. But Hemingway writes at about a 6th grade level, and so don't mistake low readability with a lack of complexity.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, is that often when readability grade creeps up, it's only for good writers, it's only because they have to use more technical terms because of the domain they're in. So, they're not using longer sentences necessarily, but they have to use words like, hemoglobin or something, right? You wouldn't find,
character, so we've answered that one. Oh, Ed says, I love ProWritingAid. It's a great product and all of these free classes are just amazing. Great job. Thank you very much, Ed.
Thanks.
Can we have a quick look at the Word add-in? I think that's the only one we haven't looked at.
Yeah.
So it has a slightly different functionality compared to the other ones.
Yeah, so you can see, you can go to the ProWritingAid toolbar, and it's very similar in terms of all of the reports that are available. When you turn real-time on, you get this sidebar, which allows you to go through. Again, you get all of the help in there. And you can correct from here, so you can go through your mistakes in the sidebar. This sidebar is going to be coming to the web editor as an option as well in the future.
I love the sidebar. It's so efficient just to work through all of these different things.
And again, you've got all of the information in here, videos as well.
See, he just wants to show off his comma splice explanation.
That's a comma splicer, that's different. That's where you shouldn't be having a comma. And so there's also an option as well to use the pop-up as within the on the web editor. So again, it's very, very similar, and a lot of people will change between using the web editor, Word, got Google Docs open here as well.
Yeah, and I use all of them. You know, when I'm submitting to one of the websites that I write for, and they like to have it in Google Docs, then I write it there. When I'm writing for a first draft of some of our books, I do all of that in Word, and then I use the Chrome extension all the time. So I use it all over the place, depending on the destination of my writing.
Yeah, exactly. So this is actually provided by our Chrome extension. But there's also a specific add-on for Google Docs here, which allows you to run the summary report. And then if you click on this improved document, then it will bring up our web editor so you can access all of the other reports. That's because I'm logged in with my personal email to give myself a license. So yeah, and yeah, I like this because you can actually see there's a false positive here in Google Docs' grammar checker. They're suggesting it should be changed to everyday version.
Oh yeah, Google Docs. Let's have a quick look at the other features. We're running a bit out of time. Do you want to show? Well, in the MS Word add-in, you can do word clouds, which I think people find quite fun and useful.
Yeah, so you
can also look at the Word Explorer.
So it takes all of the words in your document and creates a little word cloud based on the frequency of it. So you can choose different fonts as well. And you can choose the size. So this is great if you're writing content or you just want to get an overview of your document. You know, often character names become the biggest ones in here.
But then you'll be surprised sometimes at the words that come up, and you think, really? I used the word surprised 16 times in this document? And so then you can go back. It's, you know, it's another more interesting way to run a repeats report. So that's quite fun, but it can steal away hours of your life because it's quite fun to play with. And then do you want to have a quick look at the Word Explorer?
Yeah, so the Word Explorer, you can access either from the menu here. You can see other things like you can convert coding straight quotes automatically. Word Explorer here just allows you to type in like a word, like you know,
beautiful is a good one, or hot.
And then it gives you access to lots of information for that word. And so for me, the main use of the Word Explorer is if I'm struggling with creativity. So if I've got a bit of writer's block, I'm not sure what to write, I will pop in here and it will give you a lot of inspiration. So obviously it gives you the definition. For me, I really like the reverse dictionary. So what this is doing is taking all of the definitions in the dictionary and looking for where the word beautiful is used. So you get interesting ones like Delilah, Snow White, Bridget Bardot.
All of these words have the word beautiful in the definition itself. So they spun it around, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, so maybe if you're looking for kind of like a simile, you might say like beautiful, like a southern belle or something.
If you're building a metaphor.
Yeah, she was the belle of the ball.
In there. Yeah.
So it can often take your mind in different ways and things that you wouldn't necessarily think about.
There was a writer as well that used this to fill out the setting because they were writing a book that took place in a vineyard. And so they put the word wine in there and then had all these words that they could use to fill out their setting, place things that you might find in a vineyard, different kinds of wine, materials for making wine, all of these things to give it a bit of authenticity. So that's quite fun.
Yeah, it kind of gives you, I always call it semantic spreading. So it's spreading out from your initial idea and kind of filling out, the background of it. Yeah, I think that's a perfect example. So you have things like Thesaurus for it, contextually related, which can be similes, but also opposites as well. Lists in which alliterations, which are useful to some people, like Lisa said, cliches with it. Beautiful listen to this long. Things that are spelt similarly. Not much for this. Rhymes if you're writing poetry. Common words that come before it. So you might want to make beautiful damsels, beautiful picolas. Again, it's lots of sort of semantically related things. Things that people describe as beautiful. Common phrases that include beautiful, and even examples from books and from quotes. So there's a lot of inspiration in there. I quite often use it for brainstorming like ideas. As I say, if you get stuck with something, it's a great resource for that.
Yeah, so Ed is just asking if you can show again how you got there. So there's two ways to get there. You can either go from the menu.
You can either go from the menu here and click on Word Explorer, or there's kind of like, if you're actually doing something, then you can double click to get the thesaurus up, and then you can click on Word Explorer here and it will bring it up with the specific word that you were looking for.
Okay. Abraham is saying that English is his second language. Do you have any suggestions or reports to help him improve his language?
Well, I think the tool is designed so that the real time gives you the sort of immediate things. So, if you're going to use anything, you'll be using the real-time suggestions. But then after that, you can go into other things. So, for instance, the all repeats is useful, even if you're writing in another language, because you'll find phrases that you've repeated. As is the readability, you'll find the most difficult sentences that you've written and you can improve them. So again, I think the Thesaurus report for me, this again is one of my favorite ones because it allows me to just do what a lot of writers do, which is go through and look in a thesaurus for all of the words and then try and pick a better alternative. So we take all of your verbs, nouns, adverbs and adjectives, we look them up in a thesaurus, and then we actually try and fit the context around them so that you're only looking at the kind of the best the best fits for it. So again, you could go through and look up every single word in a thesaurus, but that would take you ages. This just allows you to go through up and choose different words. And it might be you go, oh no, it's not quite right, but but for me, I like it because often the word that you write down in your first draft is just whatever popped into your mind while you were getting your ideas down. But there's probably a better word or a more nuanced word that you can use instead. So this allows you to find it without the difficulty of trying to extract it from your mind. It's like doing a crossword, trying to come up with the right words, right?
Yeah, and every report has more about this report in the sidebar there. So go in, play around with it. If it's not making sense to you, just click through on there and you can learn more about how it works and what kind of fixes you can do. We're running out of time. We're here every month, so you're welcome to come back over and over. I recognize some people have been here before. Suzanne Smith has just said in the chat that Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it. And I think that's a good rule of thumb for our readability reports. Joan, Joan's got a couple of specific questions about the word editor that I don't think we will get to here today because there's 50 people here with us. But if anybody's having specific troubles, same with Marlene and Grace, just send a message to hello@ProWritingAid.com. We've got a really great team of people who will help you through it, and they can direct you towards videos and they can tell you what to do. For the banner that's not staying up in Word, we have a little extension that you can run that'll help make sure that it stays up there. And I think all the rest of them are quite individual questions, and we're out of time. So I'm really sorry, everyone. I hope you've found this useful. I'm just going to put in the chat one more time the link to the upcoming events. We've got lots of webinars.
Yeah.
We've got one
It's
on
also
Thursday.
on this Learn menu on the website.
Oh, yeah, of course.
The blog, grammar guide, webinars. We've got some free ebooks for you as well. So, as I said, there's a wealth of resources there.
Yeah, there's over 1,000 articles on our blog now that cover everything from writing at work to if you're a blogger or if you're a student. We've got a lot of really good content for teachers and students.
There's a whole section on how to use ProWriting as well, teachers how to use it in the classroom, other writing apps that you can use, business writing, grammar rules. And
the idea there is that we know that the writing process from idea to published work or submitted work is a long one, and we're really great at helping at the bit in the middle where you're tightening up your sentences and copy editing your work and trying to strengthen. But we know that there's also writers need to be able to sell their books, and so we have webinars and articles about book marketing, and we've got idea generation. We've got a good idea generation one coming up on August 13th with Jill Bunting from The Right Practice. So we just want to help you get from idea to published work as much as possible and improve your skills along the way. And with that, I think we will sign off. Thanks everyone for coming. I hope you found it useful. And
we've got a 25% off sale at the moment if anybody wants to.
Oh yeah, one more day.
For the next 1 day and 11 hours. 56
1 day
minutes.
and 11 hours. Yeah. So thank you again, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Come back every month, ask us all your hardest questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.